welcome everybody to this week's beautiful, amazing, very exquisite NYM community call. This time around, I'm making a promise already. I'm trying to keep my face at a consistent distance from the microphone so that audio is not as bad as last time around. How is everybody doing? Hopefully very well. Today I have with me two very important people of the NYM community who I'm super excited to introduce to you guys. One of them is Jose David. Hi, Jose David. Say hi to the people.
Hello, what's up? I'm Spanish based, so my mother tongue is not English. Hello, how you doing? Happy to be here today.
That is totally fine. No, I think nobody's native basically, and it's a global community. And I also have with me a surprise guest. Initially, I tried to bring as many community grantees on as possible, but as it turns out, people who have lives actually are on holidays during August, so I was not very successful. But fortunately, Raymond got to join us. So hi, Raymond. How's it going?
Pretty good. Hey, everyone. My first time here, and let's do it.
These two folks are both part of our Spanish-speaking community and have been contributing quite a bit to the project, but more on that later because we're going to be talking through their grants applications and also a bit about the grants program in general. But before that, as usual, I'm going to go through the quick housekeeping items. So the call is being recorded. You may have noticed our beautiful recording bots, Craig and Giark, in the audience, will be uploaded at some point to our YouTube channel, to the usual playlist. Everything that I'm going to be mentioning during my news roundup is going to be linked in the chat. So if you want to read about something a bit further, then you can check in the state chat. And with that, before I start my convo with Raymond and Jose David, I'm going to go through the news roundup. So here's what happened with NYM over the past 2 weeks. First of all, as this call is centered around that, you may have already heard that the community grants program has kicked off. So our first community grantees have been introduced. So for context, this is for now a soft launch with only just a few RFPs, which are requests for proposals. But the full launch will happen sometime in October with significantly more RFPs. And already you can suggest your own RFPs if you're so inclined. So if you think something's missing from the list that we put out, the initial list, then you can suggest additional ones. And that is also going to be important going forward from October when the program fully launches, but more on the grants program in a bit. Now, you may have already seen, if you spent any time during the past a week or so, or 2 weeks or so in the NYM community, we have a design contest running. Make sure if you want to submit any designs for the contest, then do so before the 21st of August. Submissions will close. After you guys have submitted everything that you wanted, there will be an audience choice award. So a period of 1 week when the audience will get to vote on everybody's submissions. Super exciting. And then moving on to our censorship resistance test. So we put out recently a test, which you can use to test whether the NYM mixnet is being censored in your area. This is, of course, incredibly important. The NYM mixnet can do all kinds of fancy things. It can protect your privacy at the network layer, but all of that is useless in case it is being censored at the government level. We need to make sure that the NYM mixnet is censorship resistant so that it's available to everybody. So if you have a second and you're a little bit technical, so it's not a very easy test to run. You need to jump into command line and run some commands, all of that good stuff. And from what I understand, it's easiest to run on Linux. If you or some of your friends have access to a Linux machine, and especially if you're in a region which is known to censor stuff on the internet, which is Russia and Iran and China, just make sure to run the censorship measurement so that we can tune our censorship resistance accordingly. Jose David, were you about to say something?
No, I just was going to say your sound sometimes comes and goes. I don't know, you might be moving, the microphone is fine. It sounds perfect, but sometimes louder than others.
Interesting. I'm really focusing on keeping my face the exact same distance from the, I don't know why that could be. Hopefully it's not too bad, guys.
No, not at all. Not at all, slightly.
All right, so moving on to, once again, one of my favorite blog posts. We're kind of on a streak when it comes to blog posts recently. So a blog post dropped and its title is, "What does it take to build the world's most powerful VPN?" It describes the 4 major steps that need to happen before NYM VPN is coming. So for context, for those of you who don't know, one of the big things that will happen this year, one of the things that the NYM team has been gearing up for a long time, and it's a major milestone in the project, is that we're going to be releasing the thing that is now called NYM VPN. I am personally not overly fond of this name, but it's easy for people to understand because it will act like a VPN. It will look like a VPN. Might as well call it that. VPN usage has been skyrocketing over the past years. I think it's now an over $40 billion market. And that really shows that there's a real need for privacy. And also, in my personal opinion, there's a real need to have a way to bypass the chaotic and arbitrary regional restrictions on a network that is fundamentally global, which is the internet. That's VPNs in a nutshell, but there are some issues with VPNs, which I'm not going to go into, but I'm going to say firmly that the NYM VPN, let's call it that for now, be very different from other VPNs. So obviously there are quite a few steps complete before we can launch that VPN. And I think this blog post is fascinating. Everybody should give it a read to understand what the project is working on for the rest of the year. And then moving on to our next blog post, which is also great. The NYM is not a blockchain, but it's powered by one. So we've been on a bit of a streak explaining the FAQs, sort of things that are often misunderstood by the community or things that are not overly clear. So we're releasing blog posts to clarify some of these things. One of the things that people often misunderstand is that, they think that the NYM mixnet is a blockchain, which it's not. It's network infrastructure. So this blog post explains what the difference is and what the connection is between the Nix blockchain and the NYM mixnet. Not to spoil the fun, so please read the blog post if you're further interested. But basically, the Nix blockchain mediates everything that happens on the mixnet, including rewards, the NYM token, and a whole bunch of other things. So the blockchain is important for the NYM mixnet, but basically the NYM mixnet is a use case of the Nix blockchain. That's how it's easiest to understand. More info in the blog post. And I would like to shout out our weekly privacy news roundup. So we've been publishing these for about 5 weeks now. It's a pretty good way of keeping up to date with the world of privacy news. Everything from tutorials on cracking privacy policies, the EU's imposition of fines on TikTok for breaching child data privacy rules, Google's launch of privacy enhancing tools, and much, much more. If you want to just quickly keep up to date with general news in the privacy space, then make sure to look around on our channels. And you can also leave your comments if any of the news is something that you're particularly worried about or particularly happy about. Moving on to a community announcement. It's pretty important. We launched a ticketing system on Discord. So this is supposed to streamline a little bit the process of you leaving us feedback, whether it's bug reports or various issues that you're having or just general things that you want to tell us about. So this is part of a bigger push that we're currently doing at NYM, which is becoming a community-first organization, which of course also includes making sure that we hear you guys out and that we decide about certain actions and the directions that we're taking together with the community. So feedback is very important. You may have noticed that recently in the past few months, we've been running multiple surveys, more polls are popping up across our channels, and this is part of that initiative. So one of the things that we've been doing so far, and that I think we're changing a little bit, is that often we left or kept under wraps certain developments that were happening at NYM, because this is understandable. Of course, you don't want to commit to, for example, deadlines on stuff that you're not entirely sure about. So that's the reason we've been keeping stuff under the wraps. I will treat these community calls, as events between the core team and also our core community. So you are our core community. You can be let in on some secrets and some stuff that is coming in the near future with no definite deadlines. So one of those things, which I hope everybody will be happy about, is that eventually throughout the year, at some point, we're going to be getting rid of KYC altogether. So for all NYM rewards, we're not going to be under a certain threshold. So there is going to be a threshold of value because of legal reasons, but we ended up finding the right way of doing this safely. So there will be no KYC for rewards, which is one of the major pain points, of course, of our community. And the other major pain point of our community has been bridging between ERC-20 and native NYM tokens. And I'm super happy and excited to report that this will also go away. So at some point this year, the wallet will get native swapping between these two tokens. So all of the issues that you've been having with Gravity Bridge is generally just not really a great process for people to go through, will be gone very soon. So those things are both happening this year. And these have been the things that the community reported as pain points most often. So hopefully you guys are happy to hear this. And on this note, I would like to encourage everybody to provide feedback whenever you can. So we're very actively keeping an eye on how you guys have been feeling, what you want to see us do more of, what you want to see us stop doing, and also just generally be involved in our decision making. So if you go to our Telegram channel, I think the poll was also shared on Discord. There is right now a poll about what our next activation campaign is going to be after we're finished with the design contest that is currently running. So make sure to vote. And if you have any ideas on top of what we already listed, then make sure to include those as well. Because in September, we're going to be launching another activation campaign and maybe be what you suggested. And then one more quick news item. It's also a pretty fun one. We've moved the weekly quizzes to Discord. This was mostly to address cheating and also make the experience a bit easier. So quiz apparently is not as well developed on Telegram as it is on Discord. So we're going to be having quizzes on Discord from now on, but it's not the only change that you're going to be seeing to quizzes. You're also going to be getting some roles if you ace the quiz. So look around on the server for the quiz master role for the big brains in the community. We've also increased the prize pool, doubled the prize pool actually, over double the prize pool for each region. So now the weekly quiz for every language has a total prize pool of 500 NYM tokens. So join next week to ace it, to increase the size of your brain significantly. Scientists told me that it always happens. People who take NYM quizzes have much larger brains than the average population. And also hopefully you have some fun in the process. And with all of that said, since I rambled on for quite some time, I'm not going to go through all the events that happened over the past 2 weeks. So hopefully our beautiful CMs will leave some links to those as well in the chat. So I'm not going to talk about those. Instead, I'm going to move on to our guests and my conversation with the guests. So what my evil plan with this community call is, so I have 2 elements to my evil plan for this community call. One of those is to just inspire you guys to apply for community grants and get involved with the project by showcasing these 2 guys who are working on very different things, all part of the grants program. And also to give you a sneak peek into what's coming with the full launch. Like I mentioned, the full launch of the grants program, the community grants program, will be in October, and there is something coming with that launch, which is going to be support for community organized events and meetups. So Raymond is working on one of those, and also just in general to introduce you to pretty cool people from the NYM community. And with that, first I would like to talk to you, Raymond. How's it going?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, we can, loud and clear.
Nice. Let's speak now about the program, the grants program, right?
Yeah, but first, maybe talk a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What should we know about you?
Okay. I'm Raymond. I was born in Mexico City. I'm from Mexico City. I'm connected with the community of NYM in first time when I was in Guadalajara, Mexico, in an event in Thailand where I meet Danny and Woods. We was talking about the privacy and the power of community with Gus. And I talked to Gus about the most important for the communities is the privacy. And I would like to run notes for me. I remember that day, it will be yesterday. And I remember that. And after I joined to the NYM channels, and it will be great because change the panorama and you can see the importance of the privacy and the NYM and what NYM is building for the community and for your privacy. My background is I love run nodes. Actually, I'm running many nodes for many projects but I like NYM because it's freedom for creating. If you want, you can collaborate, you can make the somethings with growth, the community. If you want, it's great because if you want, you can do it. NYM show me that nothing is impossible. I'm very excited because when I know NYM was great, really was great because when Danny told me about the privacy, about the important, the gateways, the midnet, it's boom in my head, because it's new for me. And after I was reading about the documentation, and after I was sending some information from my Twitter, it's very exciting because you learn one information important and share with other people that knows NYM is great. It's really great. I feel happy for share with other people the importance of NYM and the privacy and how these things are connected. It's great. I don't know, it's great. And my background is there. I don't know if you have a question for me, but I'm very excited.
Thanks for the intro. And by the way, just a bit of context to the audience. When Raymond says Daniel or Danny, he means Daniel, our head of growth for Latin America. Hi, Daniel. He's in the audience with us today. Okay, so That's great. So you found out about us at Talentland, which I hear was a big success for NYM. A lot of capable young people over there found out about NYM that way. And can we talk a little bit about the event that you're cooking up for us? Why did you decide to do it? Share some of the details of the event.
And start about the grant program, and we're preparing in Mexico a side event for Eat Mexico event, which will be on October 2021. And what we're building is an event where several communities come together to talk about the importance of privacy as human rights and the growth of hypervigilance through various government and non-governmental organizations. In the first step is create a meetup about NYM in general, terms general, and after create workshops how you can run with NYM, how to use the NYM Connect, and after we can invite to many people of other communities for connect with NYM, and I make collaborations with Totally Crypto, Special Crypto, Nutmegs, various communities of Mexico that where I can connecting. I'm collaborating with many communities in Mexico City. Then I would like connect them with NYM, right? For example, actually I'm in the Downs, with Nación Bankless. It's a sub-DAO of Bankless DAO. And I would like create a newsletters, podcast, interviews with Goods and Danny of Nación Bankless. And Totally Crypto, I'm writer there. I would like create newsletters on podcast too, X spaces, and I would like create some many things in the NYM community. This is my proposal: create workshops and meetups in Mexico City and grow the community in NYM. I love really NYM. I would like invite to an artist for create a new logo for NYM of Latam. The logo will be Carracedo with NYM Latam, and I would like create some with all artists of Mexico because NFT artists are my friends in Mexico City, right? I would like invite them to create some with NYM logo of Latam. That's it.
Sounds amazing. And this is also an encouragement to everybody who has the intention to make people connect to each other and organize a NYM meetup. It's going to be coming with the full launch of the NYM grants program, the community grants program, support for meetups and events. And this is going to be a great start to that. So officially, we can confirm that there's going to be a NYM side event to ETH Mexico.
Yeah, we'll be in Mexico City in 21 October.
Amazing. Save the date, folks, especially if you're in Mexico, 21st of October, NYM side event. All right, well, cautious of time because we're halfway through already. Let's also talk a little bit to Jose David. Hey there, Jose David.
Hello, what's up?
Hey, what's up? First of all, I would like to shout you out big time for doing this on a family vacation. That's very noble of you.
Happy to contribute whenever it's necessary.
Thanks for being here. Let's talk about your background a little bit. What should people know about you?
Well, I was studying privacy. Well, I was studying social control. Very concerned about what internet was bringing in the 90s. And at that time, I was focusing on social control, privacy in terms of the data that was available for companies and, well, actually similar to what's happening now, and how the lack of privacy or the lack of anonymity in the internet could jeopardize interesting uses from the cypherpunk perspective, such as what now is a reality of with anonymous money, or anonymous credit cards, or electronic voting. And those were the things I was studying at that time. After that, I completely changed the scope. I went to do political campaigner in different countries, and as well as an electoral observer. I had childs, 2 of them, kids, which have taken most of my time. And I've been as well in the institutional politics working. Some years ago, I was always very interested in the Bitcoin sphere and the cryptographic industry since it was born. But I had the problem that when you have get into the discourse or the telegrams of different groups, I always find fascinating how community was so alive, but I did not see my purpose well in those projects. I see always the lack of cyberpunk perspective, of a perspective of trying to do some good with the technology, besides getting rich or enhance technical solutions, more like a purpose in terms of human rights. And when I heard about you guys, I was so excited. It was as well through Danny. Well, actually, the first time I read you was about the Dark 5 manifest in, I believe it was February 2001 or 2002. But then I forgot. And Daniel, the head of growth of Latin America, was happened to be a hacktivist, which I have worked with before, participated in political work, activism. Told me about the project. I started reading. I wrote the white paper, the purposes, the documentation, and I got very, very excited. And I started to help out in whatever I could. First in the Latin American community, and later on, as now is the purpose of this MAN, it's about I applied for a grant. I applied for a grant within the grant program that was launched a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. And that brings us to your grant application. So you're doing some research for NYM, which I think is super interesting and very important as well. So let's maybe walk people through what the research is about and, why you're doing it.
Yeah, this is one of the many grants that have been given. You can find them in the NYM Medium. There is a post about it. The one I will carry out is to find out local use cases of privacy within Latin America. In order somehow, we had the idea that maybe we should need to complement the European Western-centric discourses and solutions about privacy and surveillance. And maybe there was something to be done at Latin America that somehow could be different of how the NYM project has been growing. Because the current development of the MixNet and the NYM Connect are obviously milestones and they have to be celebrated. But however, we must keep in mind that those who have this device and developed them were born, raised, and live in more or less developed welfare states. So they are part of a specific Western culture. And Latin America is a different country, it's a different area. Actually, one of the most violent areas in the world with very specific needs for privacy and for anonymity. They might differ from those who have been designed so far. And also, and it happens in the many parts of the world. In Latin America, there are modern developed cities that somehow imitate Western cities, and they coexist with rural areas where, with very limited access to technology devices, or to the infrastructures that support those devices. So it was worth to give a shot to try to do research about what are the discourses about privacy and surveillance within the area. We are focusing in certain profiles to interview them. And from there on, we have to build at least 5 different use cases. I don't know, actually, I could be talking a lot about all these things, but basically the profiles, so you guys have an idea of what the research will be about. We'll be trying to look for LATAM experts on privacy and surveillance, as well as cybersecurity, high-ranking public officers and governmental institutions, and what needs they foresee in the future. Civil servants, a key post or arch of needs in every day, as well as social movement activists that have a concern with privacy or have been suffering because of the lack of privacy. Let's say, for example, journalists in several countries or environmental activists who have been killed. We also will be targeting women's rights activists, as well as ethnic communities' perspectives. Obviously, the Westernized in the capital, but as well the indigenous, the Afros, and so on. Of course, hacktivists and cyberpunks, and see if there is a different culture back here in Latin America and what they have to tell us about what they need from us, besides or further than NYM Connect and the MixNet, as it is now.
That's pretty amazing stuff. And let me frame this a little bit for the audience. So I think you guys, if you attended the previous community call, you heard me talk about this earlier as well. The narrative is something that is very important when it comes to privacy. So obviously, for people to want to use something like NYM and join this movement, they need to understand what the problem is. What we increasingly realize with the NYM team is that, just how Jose David just explained, the narratives that really talk to people in different regions are obviously very different. And our perspective as the NYM team is very much a Western-centric perspective. We talk a lot about NSA, we talk a lot about Google and Facebook surveillance and all of that stuff. And this, as a fact, does not speak at all to, for example, our African audience at all, as we noticed. Then narrative work in different regions is very important. So looking into what works, what really speaks to people is very important. So my question to you, Jose David, is whether you have any hypotheses going into this. You know pretty well Latin America. You've lived there for a bit now.
So, well, actually, not long ago, you made a quiz or somehow we're asking people about the translation for the word privacy into other languages. And for example, in Spanish, privacy, which is privacidad, did not exist 2 years ago. Actually, it was an acronym from the English that we worked it out, but it's not a concept that we have. Those issues linked with privacy are in Spanish. I would say they are more linked to the concept of surveillance in the Spanish language. I mean, as I was saying, this is a very violent area. And also it's happening, it's going through a political change in the last 20 years, in which there are governments that try to do an continental integration of policies. They have a social perspective, focus on human rights. They will have probably technological development plans that might somehow be or try not to be Western, or they try to figure out what is they need here. My hypothesis, I don't like to say it because I came to the research trying to forget my hypothesis. Obviously, when I said what kind of people we're going to interview, in that way, I'm already assuming that the hypothesis will be like social movements and those governments that try to implement a social change will need somehow to prevent the counterpowers to know what they're doing. The case of the social movements to avoid being killed, or the actions to be destroyed, to be overcome. And the case of the governments, in order to be able to wield policies and discuss them without interference of the counterpowers, though being those local by the media or other countries with the big evil, supposedly, that is somehow United States, at least the foreign policy toward Latin America, has not been in the enhancing human rights in the long history of relationships. But we'll figure it out. We will try, as you say, maybe this is a narrative, there are new narratives that have to do a lot more with other human rights besides privacy, because privacy is a human right, but there are many others as well. The freedom of speech, probably, I'm assuming it will be one of the things that will come out. I don't want to elaborate until I do the research.
That's a good position to have, and very exciting stuff. I can't wait to see the outcome of this research, and hopefully we can do the same in other regions as well. I think it's very important, not only for NYM, but also for the privacy space in general, to find ways to effectively communicate communications about it. It's very important. All right, well, with that though, I think we could maybe move on to the title topic of this community call. Talk a little bit about digital rights. I also invite Raymond to join in on the chat. That's one thing I would like to elaborate on a bit, Jose David, before we get started, because you did mention it a lot to me in private while we were preparing for this community call. Cyberpunk perspective. You mentioned that a lot. So what is the cyberpunk perspective? Or maybe even let's go back a bit. For those who may not know, you probably heard this word before, cyberpunk. But what is cyberpunk?
Well, actually, the problem is sometimes we believe what cyberpunk is by what the content we hear the word is being used. So actually, that's the same way we are kids. I wouldn't know exactly what the definition of cyberpunk is and who was the guy or the girl who came out with the punk theme. But for me, cyberpunk perspective, it's a way of understanding technology that go beyond what is given to us from a consumerism perspective. Usually, most of the applications that we are offered assume we are going to use them as consumers. We will use for what they need, or for what we need, but we will critical press all those buttons, including those that we give away of our rights about our property or communications or our data. Confronting to that, I will believe that cyberpunk is just the exercise to be critical about what technology has been developed, and further to think about what technologies do we need. And in the middle, maybe it's what has been offered, what we could do besides what was intended in terms of commercialization at the beginning. So how we could use technologies in a way that satisfies some of our needs. But this is the intellectual exercise to try to figure out what is missing, what should we enhance. I would say, I don't know, what do you think? Raymond and Suda, what do you think about cyberpunk terms?
We're talking about cyberpunk here, not cypherpunk, right?
Yeah, I would say cyberpunk. I don't know, what is cypher?
So cypherpunk is a movement that actually is fairly close to NYM. In fact, NYM ended up growing out from the cypherpunk movement. Cypherpunks identified very early the potential of the internet, so creating this network which connects all computers in the world, and how things are going to increasingly move online, the incredible oppressive potential in that. What differentiates cypherpunks from crypto-anarchists is that basically cypherpunk is applied crypto-anarchy. Some people really fought me on this point, but I still stand by it. I think that's the easiest way of explaining it. Cypherpunks write code. So cypherpunks created systems which are exclusively based on encryption, which basically enforce equality between large players and yourself, which is, for example, we take end-to-end encryption for granted. For example, even WhatsApp and less privacy-preserving messaging apps have end-to-end encryption, right? But if it wasn't for the cypherpunks and their activism, there would not be encryption today because it would not be legal. So asymmetric encryption was illegal in the States because of a technicality until the early 90s. And it was the cypherpunks activism which then ended up led to the legalization of encryption. So after that, there were like various different tools built by cypherpunks, such as PGP, which is pretty good privacy. It's an encryption protocol for communications and various other things. Basically, they identified the issue that the internet could cause, and they saw encryption as a solution to the oppression potential of the internet. That's the cypherpunk movement. And when it comes to the cyberpunks are a bit fuzzy for me. I do know some of the sci-fi that is written, so the cyberpunk universe, I do know some about that. I did play some cyberpunk 2077 as well, but the ideology itself is a bit fuzzy for me. It's basically a dystopian world where people live in like an increasingly oppressive, technologically oppressive world or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Cypherpunk is not sci-fi, yeah. Cyberpunk is sci-fi, yeah. Good point, Skynet. And also cool name, by the way.
I actually, when you say cipher, I say, of course, from ciphering, from encryption, from the movement that was made up when it was discovered in the 1972, and as you mentioned, the 98, 99 movement, the No Big Brother movement in the United States to legalize the encryption. But for example, I was in a seminar in Italy in 94 that was actually cyberpunk, and they were all basically philosophers trying to figure out how technology could be enhance human race and social movements and political movements. So maybe it's a matter of what term has been more popular in different countries. Maybe in Southern European countries or Latin America, it's been cyberpunk. I don't know. I always have said cyberpunk, but I understand cypherpunk it's a very similar purpose. Oh, I believe. Of course, making emphasis in encryption, and that's why we're in a blockchain, in a project that uses blockchain, because the possibilities of encryption and of the technology of blockchains are actually amazing in terms of what they could provide and what we could imagine to do from social perspectives and human rights perspectives.
That's a good point. But I want to hear out Raymond as well. You said something nice in chat. Can you repeat that in voice as well? What is cyberpunk for you?
For me, the cyberpunk is a technology movement about using technological tools to rebel against a hypervigilant system. Is for me.
Yeah, to rebel against the hypervigilant system. Yeah, and that makes it fairly similar to the cypherpunk movement.
Yeah, in the hypervigilant system is the world is connected every day. For example, the social media is vigilant. It's you. It's watching you. It's like the Big Brother, right? If you remember in the book 1984, where George Orwell talked about the hypervigilant system, the Big Brother, and the school of the knowledge, school of thinking, is very terrific. The cyberpunk tried to resolve that, tried using the tools, for example, the technology, encryption, using NIM Connect, is the best way for destroy the system. You can fight versus the system using tools that using the governments for your favor.
Yeah, I do actually love the rebellious energy and, saying destroying the system. Here at NIM, we like to word as changing the system, privacy for everyone. But but I totally get what you're saying. And I can't say that I don't agree.
Sounds like energy.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very much crypto anarchy. So if you ask me, that's the thing we should strive for. Moving on a little bit to digital rights. So where does digital rights come into this whole picture that you kind of painted, Jose David? And what does privacy have to do with digital rights?
I would say that since the very beginning, they have tried to create the internet sphere and consequences and how and what it means to use it as something separate for the human right perspective. For example, which is very common, like we ask for anonymity or for privacy. Some people, conservative perspective, will say, "What do you have to hide?" Nothing. The same way that when I walk through the streets, I don't have a sign saying who I am, and I don't have to report to the police every single place I visit when I'm walking through the streets. So the problem with the issue with the digital rights is when we implement a new technology that affect our lives and change how we interact with the technology, those who can, because they are so, well, let's say first this thing, that change how we interact, we should make sure that the current human rights are respected there, and as well try to figure out what other new rights may have to be brought to our attention. For example, it's very common now about the exchange of images. For right now, there is a right that you are owner of your own images, and if there's someone or one content that you don't want it to be distributed, it could be you could exercise that right. And actually, for some kind of images, the law by itself determines that that's illegal to distribute images, for example, of sexual content of someone without her or his consent. In Spain, for example, this is actually part of the law. So this is a new law, a new right that has been given to confront the new reality that has been brought by the technology. Also, when we talk about digital rights, we should talk about the question of access in a very general perspective, I think. And I won't go into it because then we will consume all the time. But basically, is that we do not access the same way everybody. And I'm sure in the research I will do in Latin America, this will be one of the main issues, that people have lots of differences of how to connect depending on the money, or the class, or the language, ethnicity, gender, age, and so many, and even political bias, so on. So digital rights also should be taken into account, that if they're going to be there, they should be available for everybody, not just for an elite or a specific, or maybe not elite, but maybe just for 55 or 60% of the people in a country. And if we talk about in terms of the world, then the percentage comes to less of the half of the people. What do you think?
That's an excellent point. And I would also mention here digital integrity, which is something that Alexis Russell has been fighting for that for over a decade now. And it's been recently enshrined in Swiss law, Geneva. A huge win. So basically, like you say, the laws and rights have to follow the digital realm as well, and they look differently in the digital realm. Whether it's sharing images about someone, without their consent, the world has been changed very significantly as a result of the digital revolution, and we need to make sure that people are protected. So digital integrity, for those of you who are not familiar, a link to a blog post which we wrote about it was shared in the chat. But in short, basically forever, the Swiss law protected part of Swiss human rights is your right to mental and physical integrity. So no one can threaten you physically, no one can threaten you mentally, keep you in a threatless state mentally. And then recently, it's been also added that you also have a right to digital integrity, which touches on a lot of the points that you raised. So it's
it has been added to the constitution, right? A list of one canton in Switzerland.
I believe so, yes. Although don't quote me on the details because it's been a while and my brain is not great at remembering stuff in general.
Salazar has added to the chat. I was looking for it in the internet, I couldn't find it, but yes, it's an article very good in the Medium about it.
All right, so we're so limited on time. I plan to talk a bit more about digital rights, some of the stuff that we discussed before the call as well. What about the term, which I think I'm not going to be able to pronounce well, but techno luddites? What does that mean?
Okay. This is the term I like a lot. I learned about it when I was in Warwick University in the 90s. It was written by Frank Webster and Kevin Robbins, two sociologists from technology, sociology of technology. And basically what they say is techno luddite would be those who decide which kind of technology they want to use and which kind of technology they consider to be threatened for their way of life or for their human rights, and therefore confront it. It's a mix of the term techno and the term luddite, would come from the movement that is called as Luddism. Very quickly, I would say that was a movement prior to the unions in the early industrial revolution in England. They are known, or are actually known as people who hate machines because they went to the factories and smashed them. And this is just partly true. It is true. It was a movement that usually raid into factories and destroy some machines. And what machines that were destroying? Those who will cause deaths, or those who were meant for child labor. So the same employees, the same workers, men and women during the night will assault the factories and somehow destroy certain kind of machines. The repression of this movement was huge. I mean, it was allows people to be shot dead if caught in the act of destruction of property linked to the Industrial Revolution. And so, but this movement basically, as what they were doing is they were protecting their way of life. They're protecting their own lives. They were protecting the system in which child should not work. They were protecting their lives at work. So it was somehow like a prior union. They were fighting for a use of technology that they were fighting against some use of technology. So when Raym0xn and Raym0xn brought out this term, we were talking about cyberpunks or cypherpunks, if you want, were actually techno-luddism, because we were very much for enhancing and developing technologies that will help human rights and social movements. We will have a very critical vision for those who somehow will diminish humankind in many different ways. We could actually be a very broad scope about what we could consider to be harmful for what technology could be harmful for humankind besides nuclear weapons, which usually have no good at all. But there's a huge scope, but basically it's the attitude by which we will enhance those technologies that help people and human rights, and we will confront those who do not. That would be a summary.
That's beautiful. As you were talking about this and describing techno-luddites, I was wondering if I am one. We already know that Raymond is one. They just told us that he wants to break or destroy the system. So he's definitely one. I'm not sure. Do you think NYM is techno-luddites, or like is it a company of techno-ludditism, breaking tech through tech, or is it not an accurate description?
I would say it is a very accurate description. NYM intends to enhance privacy and therefore protect other basic fundamental human rights as a freedom of speech. Well, I will say, well, in one recent MA, you said that NYM was the door. It is the door towards a lunar punk perspective. It's the door towards cyberpunk's perspective, in which of enhancing our lives and protecting, as I was saying, in the case of environmental activists, or in the case of journalists in many countries in Latin America, literally NYM will be saving their lives. I mean, those people are killed because they are followed by the data, and sometimes they are killed before they engage on social activities or publish certain information. So NYM definitely will help them to prevent being killed. So yes, I would say this is a very techno-luddite applied technology itself and attitude. That's why I'm here. And that's Raymond. What do you think? I know you have trouble with the English for the things we'll be talking as well before.
Did you lose Raymond? Is he busy breaking the system? Destroying the system already? Don't start yet, Raymond. Please, let's talk about it first.
Breaking the system. No. Well, can you repeat the question, please?
I was saying, well, actually, I do know Raymond for the Spanish chat, where he is very active, and we have discussed different issues. So I would certainly believe that you as well. Well, you said it before that basically the question was, Sudo was asking me if NYM would be considered a techno-luddite technology or initiative somehow. And I was saying, yes, certainly it is, because it's trying to enhance our lives, protect us from those who want to threaten certain areas of our life. So I was asking you, what do you think?
I would consider NIM for the daily life, right?
Well, in terms of everyday life, the things that you don't want other people to know, the things they will help you to do. Yes, I guess it could be considered as well everyday life.
And NIM protect you against the enemies of attack you when you navigate with NIM, running a node of NIM and using NIM connect your node with your node, and you protect the privacy and you protect you against the attacks. For me, it's very important. Take careful with the website where you're navigating. Protect everything when you're using the PC. And it's important, NIM, for many peoples and me, obviously, where you navigate, okay? But you sacrifice the scalability for privacy. It's 50-50. For me, it's important for keep the privacy when you navigate. It's all for me. The object for NIM is try to be better scalability for connection, and when you use the NIM connect, node is lower. Is the object for NIM, and try to invite to more people for connect, running a node for NIM, and try to connect for the NIM connect for growth, the scalability. Try to do a great interface for navigate for the internet.
Exactly. Those are beautiful closing words because we ran out of time, gentlemen. Do you want to say something in closing, Jose David?
Well, I will encourage anybody who is listening to figure out what is your techno luddite secret desire, or your cipher or cypherpunk desire. How do you can you maybe contribute to what is going on and make NIM better? And if you have such an idea, either it is social or is technical, please come forward and apply for the grants, because this is about building a huge community with everybody on board, as many as possible, as many ideas as possible, as many perspectives as possible. I'm talking now kind of, I look like a corporate person, but I seriously believe this is one of those projects linked to blockchains that offers the opportunity to do the good. Good to be here, and it's good to try to, if you're already in the chat, it's because you guys like this project. So I invite you to join the grant program or to join the communities to give your perspectives about what you want to be done here.
Beautiful words. One thing, a thought that is jumping out at me, which I should probably add as a closing thought, is that there is definitely in this world, there is a system to break or destroy, or however you want to say it. There is an argument to be made that NIM is here to do that. But the reason why I work for NIM is we also offer an alternative. So my personal philosophy is don't break things unless you have something better to replace it. We do have a functioning, fundamentally privacy preserving network infrastructure to replace the fundamentally privacy intrusive network that exists today. And we're here to make that vision happen, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, with that, we arrived to the end of this community call. Huge thanks for coming on to both of you, Raymond and Jose David. We'll be hearing from you in the near future. Maybe we'll do one more of these when it's not holiday time for everybody. We'll do a bit more grantees, and once we hit the first milestones and stuff like that, or maybe when we launch the full version of the grants program in October. So stay tuned for that. As you know, the call was recorded, so it is going to be uploaded at some point to our YouTube channel. So if you only caught part of it, or maybe your friend didn't catch it, then don't worry, because you're going to be able to listen to the recording. Huge thanks for everybody for joining. Mr. Pizza J, do we have a poll up for this call? Please let people know. Oh, okay. He already, he's one step ahead of me, as usual. Please share or DM Pizza J. Just sent a message in chat for your pull-ups. Beautiful day to everybody. Big thanks for joining, and have a lovely weekend. Oh, and one more quick update or quick piece of info for you guys. The next community call is not going to be hosted by me. Not sure who is going to host it, but I'm going to be also on holiday, which is not something that happens often to me. So someone else will have to host the next one. Stay tuned for that. Hopefully it's going to be a better one than mine. At least it's going to be a breath of fresh air for everybody. And with that, I would like to say goodbye to all of you. Take care. Don't break the system without having an alternative. Have a lovely weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good weekend. Good holidays.
Goodbye, guys. It was a great year be here. Thanks so much.
It was amazing to have you. Bye, everyone.